conclusion of this course, you're going to be designing and building and animating a small short film that includes 3 shots, at least 3 shots, that will serve to generate a small dramatic narrative. To that end, we need to build a whole series of storyboards that will inform and help us understand the story that we're trying to create and how best to visually tell that story. The storyboarding process is essential to the crafting of this story. It allows us to iterate, change our ideas, explore many different camera angles to ensure that the visuals that we create best serve the overall story. It's an invaluable part of our production process and one that we can't skip. In every sense, the storyboards serve as the DNA, the framework, the blueprint, if you will, of a much larger story itself. We're no longer thinking about the individual movements, but the grand visual narrative and story that we're ultimately going to craft and create. The understanding of the movements that will come and how our characters can emote and communicate to our audience, that's going to come later, but we need to know what the story is first. At times, we've got to paint with a broad brushstroke, and the storyboarding phase of every film is that opportunity. These simple little drawings will allow our audience to very quickly understand what it is that we're trying to communicate to them. Because they're simple, it only takes maybe a couple minutes to draw a single image. We can experiment. We're not investing a huge amount of time. This is not like an animation where it's just going to be hours and hours and hours of work. If we're spending more than 10 minutes on a storyboard frame, then maybe we spent too much time on it. Because they're small and rudimentary, we can experiment and explore and iterate on our story to really create and craft something that can be impactful for our audience. If you take some inspiration from other media outlets out there, comic book artists do such a wonderful job at understanding the purpose of the frame. Because within one frame, we have to communicate story, scene, depth, movement, time, this illusion of time and space and a universe, all within one frame that emotionally connects with our audience. We need to do the exact same thing in the filmmaking process. So let's jump in and start looking at how we can take advantage of the frame itself to create and craft an emotional moment for our film. The frame is a wonderful opportunity for us to create something unique to ourselves. I love storyboarding. It's some of my most favorite, it allows me to be creative in this moment. I don't have to worry about keyframes. I don't have to worry about the quality of the artwork that I'm creating. I can create something that is unique and is exclusively my own. I can think as big as I want. I can make Star Wars if I wanted in this one moment in time, right? There are no restrictions at the storyboard level. We want all of these wonderful big ideas to materialize in front of us on these storyboard panels because this is our opportunity to communicate something that is representative of what's locked in here. And often our films and our movements and our animations start with this wonderful imaginative seed, if you will, that grows in our brain over time. And the biggest challenge is extracting that now very, very mature plant or imaginative tree and giving it to our audience so that they also can enjoy it. The storyboarding phrase is that moment where we extract it from our imagination and materialize it. Once it gets drawn into the frame itself, it becomes real. It's no longer this abstract, imaginative idea that's in our brain. It's now something tangible that we can hold, that we can look at, that we can iterate and discuss and examine from a number of different angles. It becomes something that truly can communicate an idea to our audience. It's an incredible, impactful, and powerful responsibility as an artist, and it allows you to provide your unique vision of your story to your audience. So honor this moment in time in the storyboarding phase, because this is where your idea becomes your film, which is pretty cool. Real quick, let's just get it out of the way. Why horizontal? Why are all of our images horizontal? If you think about it, almost all the storyboard frames and cinema frames that we see out there are these long horizontal rectangles. Well, why? Why don't we see circular images or triangular storyboard frames? Why are we always seeing things in the rectangular world? If you take a step back for a moment and examine, kind of like separate your brain from your eyes, do this with me. If you put your hands up and move your hands backwards until you lose sight of them in your periphery. For me, it's kind of like right in here. It's kind of like right around that almost 180 degrees, maybe like 160, 170 degree field of vision out into our world. Our horizontal images are rectangular and horizontal because that's how we see the world. We see the world in this gigantic rectangle. We don't see a circle. We don't see a triangle with our eyeballs. We see a gigantic rectangle as we look out across our environment. By providing our audience with a comfortable viewing environment that replicates and matches what they're accustomed to seeing in the world, they're not going to feel comfortable and stable and secure in these really weird, abstract, imaginative ideas that are showing up in the images in front of them. We want them to buy in and invest and create that emotional connection with our audience, or with our characters, excuse me. So if we provide our audience with a viewing environment that is identical to how they view the world, then they're going to be a little bit more comfortable investing in a walking, talking rabbit, for example, right? So it's how we see the world. These horizontal pictures are how we see the world. Well, what about old school television or graphics tablets? If you think about an iPad or some of the other tablets that are out there in the market, they're not quite rectangular. They're still generally kind of square, right? If you look at the aspect ratio of these devices, they're 4:3, so they are just ever so slightly rectangular, but they're not as rectangular as we're used to seeing in high definition video or what you see on a cinema screen. So we're in that world, and I'm happy to see that we're advancing outside of that space. For me, I grew up watching standard definition television, so I'm used to seeing things in a square image. And as you can see on this screen here, yeah, it feels really uncomfortable, right? It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like a three-dimensional universe. It feels kind of locked and constricted. I feel bad for this character because I feel like he's in a jail, if you will, and I want to free him up from that environment. Our horizontal image does a great job of providing a little bit more breathing room in the frame so that we can start to see that environment. We get a good sense of depth all of a sudden. We now have the influence of the background and the horizon line as a factor and as a player, if you will, inside the frame itself. It allows our characters to, in our imagination, to move around a little bit without knocking his head into the side of the frame, right? These horizontal images make it feel comfortable, and that's the idea. We want our audience to be able to go in and very quickly feel comfortable so that they can make, as quickly as they can, an emotional relationship with the characters that we see and that we've created. The frame also does a good job of grounding our audience in a practical, realistic universe. You know, everywhere we go, we're influenced by gravity. The horizon line visually and subconsciously reminds us of what's up and what's down. Our frame is going to do the exact same thing. The tops and the bottom lines of our frame subconsciously remind our audience of that horizon line so they feel grounded, they feel safe, they feel secure, they don't feel like they're going to fall over. These are all ideas that we want our audience to bring with them so that when we show them a walking, talking rabbit, for example, they are going to be able to comfortably understand what it is that they see, and they're going to be willing to see this, and they're going to be willing to emotionally invest in a walking, talking rabbit. So we want to be able to give our audience a grounded environment. The tops and the bottom give us a great sense of the horizon line, but the sides of our frame also do a great job of reminding our audience of this wonderful three-dimensional universe. It creates this idea that our frame can be tilted up and down, that the camera can physically be rotated to show the sky or to show the ground itself. So these are all wonderful, wonderful ideas that really emphasize the impact of the frame. They create a good sense, a grounded sense of reality for our audience, and gives them a strong, hopefully a strong connection with the characters and the narratives that they're going to be seeing in the scene itself. So the frame is more than just a drawing. The frame is a window into our environment. It's a window into our story that allows our audience to fundamentally see through that window into the characters and the emotions and the stories that we're striving to create.